This is Radio Cairo, and this is the World of Info. We're coming from Studio 3. My name is Dr. Amr Mabrouk, and Dua Muhammad is at the control. And today we have the pleasure and honor to have with us the famous journalist and writer Amina Khairy, a graduate of the American University of Political Science, with a bachelor degree from the American University in Bachelor of Science, and a master's degree of journalism from City University London, and also a very talented journalist who had a very colorful career working as a columnist and a journalist in newspapers, famous newspapers like Sharq al-Awsat and Al-Haya, and currently as a columnist in Masr al-Yawm, and also a journalist in Independent Arabia. So thank you very much, because it's really a great honor that you have in your had time for us in your very busy schedule to come in our program, and we really appreciate that very much. Amina Khairy Hanem.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Amr, for the lovely introduction, as always. And as always, I have great pleasure and honor to be with you. Great doctor, great interviewer, and great everything, great friend above all.
Yes, thank you very much. Really. I know that you are very much interested in social whereabouts. And actually, you most of your columns and your articles are covering not the society, not the extravagant parties and things like that. No, but you're interested very much in sociology,
Exactly.
in examining the society, the development, the positive things in the society and the negative ones as well. And you're an avid feminist. I know that your daughter is a champion of Egypt in diving, yes, and your son is also a political scientist. So this is really a very interested. I see your effect on your children, and of course on your dear husband. He's a professor of general surgery and liver transplantation. So tell us about your hobby that has turned into a profession. I mean that every one of us starts his life as a writer. Exactly. When you're given a chance in the first school or the second or third year of school, write a topic.
Yes.
And write a composition and write something. And then some of us don't grow out of it. Yes. And we keep on writing and writing.
Some people escape, yeah.
Yes, some people drop composition dropouts. So you were able to master writing and get the way of it with becoming a writer in the end. And I think this is something that not anyone is able to accomplish. Tell us about that.
Yeah, thank you again, Dr. Amr, for your words, kind words. I think I'm not a sociologist, of course, but I'm a passion. I have a passion and interest in society societies in general. And what I mean by society is the people, whether they are men, women, children, teenagers, youth, and so on. Watching people and watching how people, the priorities of people in life and how they behave, and what the sources of information that they get. Is it the social media? Is it television? Is it newspapers? The topics that they, when they meet each other in a public bus or just in a coffee shop and so on. I think these bits and pieces, whether in Egypt or any other country, they give you like a very wide view of the country itself, the country and the people. And of course, part and parcel of it has to do with history. And of course, you, Dr. Amr, of all people, you know a lot about history, and you have this talent of making these, connecting the dots between current situations and current happenings and so on, and our history and a lot of other places as well, the history of other places. So I think watching people and having this interest in whatever consumes their minds and their time and their energy and so on, it gives you a very deep insight. This is one point. And being a journalist, it's an added asset, because one of the main duties of a journalist is to be like the good transmitter between people and whoever is responsible for things in the country. It's not only the government, by the way. It's NGOs, it's business people, businessmen and women. It's everybody. So it's this job of being a good transmitter. And what I mean by good is not only transmitting good news, but it's transmitting the exact feeling that is going on in the streets, in people, for example, when families get together and they talk and so on. In social media, the kind of comments that we see in social media, all of these things are very good ways to know more information about society. It's not only what's like political news and analysis, which is of course important in journalism, but part of the I think the heart of journalism are those journalists, professional journalists, who go out in the street and talk to people, and they have these measurements, and it's not only people, like poor people or people going through trauma or so on, because sometimes people have this idea that it's only people who have a lot of sufferings that we should write about. No, it's everybody. The middle class, they have their own problems and they have their own ambitions and dreams and so on. Wealthy people have their problems as well. They're not angels. They do have these are human beings, and transmitting this to the government, transmitting this to the business sector, transmitting this to the world is a very, I think it's a very important job. And the other thing is that when the people know and see that their day-to-day life is being reflected in, whether in a television program, in your program, in the radio, in newspapers, whatever is left of the newspapers, of course, because the newspapers are facing a lot of problems now, in websites and so on. I think this makes a big difference because they know that their lives are being reflected in a very genuine way.
Well, I know that one of your hobbies is to drop your car and go by the subway.
I love public transportation.
You love public transportation, and you get a lot of ideas of a lot of your articles from watching the people and looking at
and talking to them as well.
And this,
I love this. This is, I think, everybody should do this as long as they have the ability to do this. One thing is that I don't like driving, especially in the streets of of Cairo, and everything is like busy and so on. And the other thing is that if you live in your car and then go to your clinic or go to wherever place you're going and then back home and so on, it's like as if you're insulated from the people. So even if you can afford even having a driver and going around in your private car,
you don't like to live in the bubble.
I don't like bubbles, and they make me feel very uncomfortable, even though I can afford to live in a bubble, but I don't like bubbles. Sometimes I go into a bubble for a very limited time, like in Ramadan, for example. I do go into a bubble. It's like hibernation. It's this thing. But I mean, some people, unfortunately, in Egypt over the past, I think since the 70s maybe, and the open door policy and the change in the social structure and economic structure in Egypt, this thing about bubbles has been going on. It has been amplified, and I think whole communities right now are living in bubbles, and unfortunately their children and grandchildren are born and educated, and they work within these bubbles. So this is what I don't like about it, because sometimes people feel like it's like a trauma when they get out of the bubble.
It's a double-edged knife, of course. Yes.
Exactly. And the other people outside the bubble, the normal people, they have these feelings, and I think they're negative feelings towards those who are in the bubble. So, of course, classes and differences among people, whether socially, economically, education, and so on, it's natural. It's part and parcel of human beings, and this is how God created the world. But these different social classes and economic classes, they have to mingle together one way or another, and they have to know what's going on in the other classes' lives. They have to know about it, because if we say this is a society, we don't say this is the rich society and this is the middle class society and this is the lower economic society. We say it's one society, and it's a guarantee of when you say national unity, it's not only words or songs and so on, but national unity, especially in times of hardships, it's based on people, knowing each other, not knowing each other by name, but knowing each other. We, Egyptians, they're very unique at this. We do have our own, like in Ramadan, for example, all people, they do have like rituals. They have a routine, whether it costs like 10,000 pounds the meal, or it costs like 100 pounds. They do have the same rituals one way or another. So I do hope that we don't lose this. So my own way of not losing this is, part of it is public transport, and especially nowadays in Cairo, we're blessed with the new system of public transport, because this is one of the I think the great accomplishments over the past like 10 years. There is a whole sector of public transportation that's offering people a human way,
a decent way of transport,
of going from one place to another without having to use the car, private car.
Well, this is really very interesting, and you have a lot, of course, of great observations of this in particular in a lot of your columns, and that's what we're going to discuss after the break. So, you're still listening to the World of Info, and today is the famous writer and journalist Amina Khairy with us on air on the Radio Cairo from Studio 3. Stay tuned to us, and we'll come out right away after this break. So, we are in the month of March. And today we're having Mrs. Amina Khairy, the famous journalist, and talking in the World of Info. And the month of March is very special because it has the spring. It has the start of the spring on the 21st of March. It has the Mother's Day in March, the Women's Day, the International Women's Day on the 8th of March, and of course the Egyptian Women's Day in the 16th of March. So the ladies' month. So. And you, as a feminist, you are always taking glimpses and writing beautiful columns about not only this month in particular, but about women, our ladies, and Egyptian ladies in particular, success stories, resilient stories, and of course, ladies who are proving every day, Egyptian ladies who are proving every day that they are standing a lot of pressures, and yet they are leading their family ship to success and bringing up very enthusiastic children and family. Tell us about this in particular, being a real feminist. I'm a feminist, by the way, you know that, of course.
I think the word feminist or feminism, it has changed a lot over the past years and decades. And it's not only, it's because some people think being a feminist is someone who says that we don't like men, we have to get rid of men, and it's only women who should
these
lead,
famous
and so on.
Comic films of the island of women and things like that. This is really stupid.
You said a very important word. It's a very important adjective. This is comedy, because again, the world is created so that there are men and women, and each of them have their own role, and they complete each other. And I think my own way of thinking is that when we have like a Mother's Day and we have the International Women's Day, Egyptian Women's Day, it's just a way, and in a smart, a nice way to remind people that women are half society. And again, this is not a cliche, but I mean, women are mothers, women are wives, women are students, women are sisters, women are friends and daughters, of course, and so on. So there wouldn't have been a world if there were no women. So again, it's a way to remind people that women are part and parcel of society, that women, and it's not only about dealing with women working as ambassadors and deans of universities and very important, jobs and so on. But I think women who support their families, whether financially and educationally and psychologically and socially and everything, I think a woman is the main core in any household. Of course, this is not to say that men are not important, but I think the presence of women makes life completely different. And I'm sure, Dr. Amr, when you ask every person about their mothers, whether this is a man, a woman, a young person, and so on, and you, of course, Dr. Amr, you had a great mother, and I mean, you had a very
she was a role model.
special,
She was a professor in the university
yes,
from the 60s of the last century. So this makes her
and in a very unique field. It's,
chemistry, yes, organic
yes,
chemistry.
exactly.
Yes.
And so this is one part. Every single person, even these people who say that women are, you know, like inferior creatures, or they don't have the right mind to take decisions, and they're not, you know, equipped with the right skills to do certain jobs and so on. Even these people, when you ask them about their mothers or about their daughters, let the wives aside, because some people have these negative feelings no matter what, but I think they would have like very interesting stories and connections and emotions to tell.
If I may add something, because since when you visit me at home, you'll find, or at my office, you'll find a picture of my dad in medical school, and there are only two young ladies who are his colleagues in a class of 150 medical students. This was in the 40s of the 20th century. And now I'm teaching in Ain Shams University. I'm a professor there of plastic surgery. And I found out that 60% of the medical students are now young girls, young
This
ladies.
is excellent. I think this is excellent.
And 65% of young residents in the plastic surgery department in Ain Shams University are young ladies.
This is excellent. I think
this makes it very special. And now they are trying even to conquer certain fields, which are really, I thought that would be impossible for them to conquer. So I heard not only they are going for surgery, but they are going even for a neurosurgery, which is very tough. Up till now, they didn't approach the orthopedic department, because the orthopedic department needs a lot of muscles and extensive physical fitness. But I heard that some of the girls, young girls, are thinking of going through that. So this gives you an idea. A country like Egypt, which is going so much forward. My mother, who was a professor in the 60s in Azhar University, teaching young girls organic chemistry in the Faculty of Science, and ambassadors, ladies ambassadors who are, and ministers who are ladies from the early 60s during Nasser's time and Mubarak's and Sadat's and with President Sisi, who even have given them sort of a letter of accreditation for the female or women diplomats in Egypt. Yes. That during the past March celebration of the Women's Day, that there were a lot of celebrating the ladies or the female diplomats
and judges as well,
and judges and all this. This makes Egypt really a very special pioneer in this field.
Yes, I do believe this. I agree 100% with you, Dr. Amr. And again, if we go to another section of society, I mean, of course, having women like in orthopedics or neurosurgeons and so on is great. Having them as ambassadors and deans of universities and heads of big companies and ministers and so on is really something. But again, when we talk about in the like 25% or even more of households are supported mainly, the sole breadwinner is a woman, whether because the husband is not there, maybe because she found herself in a situation that she has to support her parents and the nieces and I don't know what. I mean, this says a lot. And the word resilience, I think, is very important here, because sometimes when you look at women and say, oh, she's poor, she can't go on her own, she has to be protected and so on. But looking at these women who are everywhere, by the way, when you look at them, they're everywhere, and they don't complain, by the way. Even if they complain like the bus was crowded, I don't feel okay and so on, but these are minor complaints,
because they still show up every day to the jobs.
Yeah, and they know that they have like 6-7 persons that they are in charge of, they are responsible for, eating, drinking, going to school, going to a doctor, even going to a picnic and so on. So I think Egyptian women, yes, I mean, every single day they do write stories that are like giving inspirations to women all over the world. Maybe they don't get the spotlight quite often, and again, this brings us to the month of March. And I think the month of March with these three occasions, International Women's Day, Egyptian Women's Day, and Mother's Day, it's a good opportunity for all of us as a society to say thank you to every woman in our life.
Yes, and of course, I mean, since we're going back even in history, because we were off air, we're talking about history. If you go to the Egyptian Museum in Tahrir Square on the second floor, you'll find a beautiful lady carrying. They call her the lady of the market. Actually, she's the offering. She's the offerings lady, but she's wearing a very beautiful dress. She's 2/3 the size of a natural of the human size. And she looks very physically attractive, wearing a beautiful dress and carrying a box, carrying a lot of offerings, bread, and holding one goose in her right hand.
Great symbol, yeah.
A great symbol of a lady, or the famous statues of the king and his wife, Amenhotep III, and his wife holding his hand and taking care of her hand,
which
as
is
well.
A great message again that
Yes.
he was not embarrassed, and
No.
I mean they're hand in hand, and she is there, not keeping a low profile, looking good, doing her share of work and so on. So again, going back to history, I think this is what feminism is about. When you read about history, read about accomplishments of women as part of ancient Egyptian society, and throughout the centuries. It's not only about ancient Egypt, but I think throughout the history of Egypt, women have always proven to be part and parcel of society. It's only like sometimes, and this happens all over the world, they have like ups and downs sometimes. Maybe fanatic people try to corner them, but I think it is women, like what happened in 2013, when people in Egypt, they revolted against the Muslim Brothers. It was women of all ages, Egyptian women of all ages, who were at the core saying that no, we want our Egypt back.
Yes.
So I mean,
and they were actually acknowledged by the president himself, President Sisi, that
exactly,
they definitely, he has given a great respect and admiration to the Egyptian women.
And going back to President Sisi, I think in every single conference or like event that is being there, he makes it a point to talk about Egyptian women, whether it's a teacher, judge, wife, wife of martyrs. And I think this is very important, because when this comes from the head of the state, it's telling people, remember all the time that women are part and parcel of society, if not the core of society.
Definitely. So we're still listening to the World of Info, and after the break we're going to continue our talk about Egyptian women with Mrs Amina Khairy, the famous Egyptian journalist and a real sociologist and feminist. Stay tuned to us. We're coming right after the break. So still listening to the World of Info. My name is Dr. Amr Mabrouk. Dua Muhammad is still at the control. And today we're having Mrs. Amina Khairy, the famous journalist, talking about her trip in journalism. I know that you have given a lot of positive stories about, we can call them really the survivors, the ladies who have fought a hard life to find a place under the sun. And I believe that this is almost related to the number of ladies and girls that you have in your family. For example, I have a sister, I have niece, I have aunts from both sides, paternal and family, and I have a mother-in-law, and I have a wife and a daughter, of course. So this makes you more attentive to the presence of ladies or women in your life, and this definitely changes your behavior and appreciation. Do you think this is true?
I think this is true, yes. And as we were saying, Dr. Amr, a few minutes ago, that women are around us everywhere. I mean, females are everywhere, whether they're grandmothers, mothers, aunts, neighbors, and so on. And again, sometimes when society puts, like more pressure on the women sector in society, attentive people to details, people who tend to indulge into details, they tend to see how these women react to these pressures, whether they are like social pressures, economic pressures, psychological pressures, and so on. And from what I see, contrary to what is being said, that of course, with all due respect to men, because again, men are fathers, husbands, sons, and grandfathers, and so on. But I think women are much more, again, resilient. Women are much more capable of enduring hardships, not necessarily muscles, things that need like physical power, but I think in situations, especially in very hard or very difficult situations, from what I see, it is usually women who tend to pick the pieces quickly and try to put them, like together again and going back to life and so on.
It's more or less like an Aziz style of story, yes, because
exactly.
it's this woman, as according to the myth, that brings back the parts together, and stand by the son to put him up to grow and to fight the evil. And although this is a very famous Egyptian myth, but still I see it every day.
Exactly.
I heard it from a lot of stories about women who lost their husbands and became widowed in a very early age, and had children that might be 6, 7, or 8, or 4, and they go on fighting. They don't just give up. They know that they are cornered, but still they fight and live. They are always living in the fight mode, not even the flight mode.
Yes, this is what I believe, and it's in different classes again. Of course, men are very much needed and they do have the power and so on, but I think it is women who start the very first step of mending things, and then men can share afterwards. And from what I noticed, that again, maybe because it's the roles played by women, like pregnancy and giving birth, I think
it's a very tough thing.
It's very tough, not only physically, it's emotionally, it's psychologically, it's everything. And sometimes I don't like comparisons, but this one I tend to think about comparisons. If men were to get pregnant and give birth, I think that would change completely the way that they look at the world, because it is a huge experience. It's a life-changing experience.
You know what I mean? There was a recent paper, scientific medical paper, was written, why is the bond between the mother and her children stays very strong all through their lives? And it was said because the woman share with the child in utero her blood, and therefore it's definitely a part of her. And it's, of course, theoretically it is part of the man, but the mixture of blood between the child inside the mother's womb and the mother makes the bond very strong, that it is very difficult to break. And that's why the love that we see between a woman and her children is an unmatched love. And that's why it was mentioned in all the religions. And when we talk about Mary and Jesus, and when we talk about what the Prophet used to say, your mother 3 times and then your father, that deserve all your care, gives an idea of how this emotional link is unbreakable, especially from the mother's side, more even from the children towards their mother. But the mother can give anything to keep her children.
And this is...
we don't see killer mothers, by the way. Yes, definitely.
It's very obvious. this is only natural that mothers do not kill their sons or daughters unless they are mentally not okay. So again, of course, you are right, Dr. Amr. We don't see killer mothers unless it's very, very rare occasions. So this brings us back to the fact that motherhood is a big thing, and of course there are mothers who didn't give birth biologically to children. I think it's an instinct in most females. They have this sense of, like, the will or the capability of taking care of others. So again, this makes the presence of women in society, whether as teachers, as engineers, as medical doctors, as journalists, it makes it irreplaceable. The presence of women is something that cannot be replaced by any other. And again, this gets us back to the point of feminism. The proper definition or meaning of or the traditional meaning of feminism, when people say that women should not work and they should go back home and I don't know what. I think this society does not work this way. It's part of the natural development of society, that there are women who work, women who stay at home sometimes for a certain duration of time to take care of the kids and so on. So again, March is the month of women, even though every month of the year is the month of women and men. It's a society. It's only natural.
Well, okay. I cannot argue with that. Definitely, the women are the pillars of the most important pillar of the society. Tell us about some of your own experience, because definitely you have made a lot of interviews with very distinguished women, and you have seen a lot in your life, and you have spent some time during your study in the UK, and also some time as a diplomat there, as a wife of a diplomat. So tell us about your experience and what really was the women that you considered as real role models in your life.
Okay, I think a lot of women, and it's not only distinguished women, meaning high-ranking women, and not only Egyptian women, but I think meeting women from all over the world, whether in the UK, in the States, in France, and wherever, even in the Far East, in the Gulf states, and so on. Meeting women and talking to them, woman to woman, as they say, I think it gives you again insight into society. A lot of these women are role models, not because they managed to get to be like head of a bank or a minister, and I have interviewed loads of highly distinguished women, but if you talk to a cancer survivor patient woman, if you talk to a woman who is going through sickness of herself, who's having cancer, for example, or sickness of a very close member of family, and you see how she's dealing with the situation, of course, after the initial reaction of, like shock and disbelief and anger and so on. You find these women, and I know some of them, managing their life as if there's nothing going on, with their going to chemo sessions and going through the treatment and so on. Like they have their homes, they have the husband, they have their jobs and so on. Of course, they do get, like every now and then, like time that they cannot, move out of the bed. But whenever they can, they make it a point to tell those surrounding them that we are there, everything is going as normal. It turns, it's like the other side. Instead of
they are nursing their family.
Yeah, instead of the patient getting the attention from the family, she is doing all that she can in order to tell them, to comfort them, and so on. So I think these are role models that are all over the place, for me at least. I think, again, going back to this section of society where women are the sole breadwinners, and again, I have written loads of articles, like feature articles, about many of them in distant, remote villages in Upper Egypt, even in the Delta. The type of businesses, the micro businesses that they come up with, these excellent ideas, and how they, again, going back to resilience, Sometimes the husband says, no, this is not going to be effective. It's only, it's just time and energy, and it's not going to be, productive, and so on. And in a few months' time, with her resilience and her insistence, and she tends to, look for information. If she knows there's an NGO that offers like advice or ways to, market whatever she's doing, she just goes. She believes that she can do this, even if it's like a very little profit, but she can do this. And I think Egypt is full of success stories when it comes to these women, even for the, like the middle class and upper class younger women, and all these projects that we hear of, like the entrepreneurs, small entrepreneurs, and they having these ideas, whether about clothes, local brands, whether about offering like having like apps, developing apps that give some sort that offer a service in society, and so on. They're very creative, and I think I'm a bit biased in this, but when it comes to creativity, of course, men are very creative. All those artists and even chefs and so on, and doctors. But sometimes the creativity of women, it has this, very special aspect. You feel this type of warmth in it.
This reminds me of a very beautiful biography that I read once about Mrs. Azza Fahmi, the famous jeweler.
And I met her when she was not yet very well known back in the late 80s in the UK, and she's one of the people who really, really changed the way I think about life in many ways.
Well, I've read her book, and I made even a narration of her book, and I received a beautiful phone call from her, and we can be, as we can call it, phone friends, if we may use the expression. And I really admired the fact that she was fighting very hard in a place that was
men-dominated industry.
Industry. And what I like recently is not, of course, just the beautiful artifacts that she's making, or the beautiful jewels, or the huge number of shops that she has all over the world. Not all this, but the most important thing is that she's giving hope to other people.
Exactly.
When ladies, I have found a lot of women and ladies, even from my patients and from acquaintance, who are having their own small projects of being a jeweler, or trying to build some art, or do some artifacts, or to use the fact that women are more persistent in making jewels or whatever, and they are trying to follow suit of her.
Exactly.
And this is a very good example.
Yeah,
this is the idea of a role model.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Amr, for mentioning Azza Fahmi, because I think Azza Fahmi, with this huge name and the really beautiful, awesome pieces of art that she produces, and of course, that when she started, she went to Khan al-Khalili inside the workshops, yes, which is totally man-dominated, and just seeing a woman or a female there was something like unthought of. And she used to be trained. She used to watch how the men do things, and this is how she learned. And this is, again, it goes back to resilience. She's persistent, and again, this is an inspiration. And what people need in any society is inspiration, because at some point we used to think that it's only football players who are inspiration to younger people, or religious people, and so on. Of course, with all respect to all these people, but having like just a normal person who started a small project, and they managed to do something like, for example, the transportation apps and so on. They started as just an idea, a crazy idea. Even sometimes people would call it crazy. And then it's serving now like billions, not millions, of people all over the world, with a very simple application that makes people meet, like like example for the transportation thing. But of course, there are millions of other ideas, and the women, they're doing a great job in this. I think especially in Egypt with the younger generations, because the younger generations, they have this. We usually criticize them all the time, saying that you don't have the patience, you don't have the enough general knowledge, and so on. But they do have their own strong points. They teach themselves. when they know that there is something that they need, they know how to get it with the age of, the digital age and the internet and so on. So most of them, they're very smart with this. Even though they don't show it, maybe they're a bit antisocial sometimes, but they do have their own ways to educate themselves and teach themselves some skills, or look for the proper way or the proper medium to get these skills.
Yes, we can go on talking forever about successful stories and about motivation. So we're still listening to The World of Info with Mrs. Amina Khairy. Stay tuned to us, and we're coming right after the break. So you're still listening to The World of Info with Dr. Amr Mabrouk, and Dua Muhammad is still at the control. And we have reached the conclusion stage, because definitely we can talk about women and success stories and about advice. But what do you think the future holds for Egyptian women?
I think the future is very bright, even though sometimes because of the pressures and hardships and so on, things tend to be like a bit hazy. But I think looking at, again, resilience of women, looking at the younger generations, the younger women, the fresh graduates, the students at universities, even the younger, the children, I see this power in them, and it's not stubbornness, even though part of it is being stubborn, but I mean, with stubbornness comes this power that, yes, we can do this. And talking to you now, Dr. Amr, I just remember that whenever I go get the light electric train, we have this new public transport again, and during daytime, most of the trains are being driven by women. And I just love the love the idea of watching them and the confidence, and I think this is a message again. These are younger women. I think they're maybe mid-20s, maybe early 20s, and she's just by herself in the cabin, and she's very confident, sure of herself, and maybe a few years earlier, people would like have this smile, that, oh, a woman driving a train and so on. But no, people are getting used to this, and I think this is very positive. When you tend to make people, you train people to get used to women, policewomen, a female driver, even for the delivery, the people who drive the motorbikes to get the deliveries and so on. I see more and more young women doing this job. At the beginning, again, there was this, smiles and so on. But nowadays, people are more and more getting used to them. Again, this is, I think, it is going to be a bright future. It's going to be a bit difficult, given the whole circumstances, maybe in the whole region. But every problem comes to an end, and every hardship, I think, comes to an end. And the good thing about it is that sometimes it makes people stronger, because when you see the worst things, you tend to have this brighter hope or ambition that things are going to get better. And with women, and they are born with this optimistic, I think, gene in them, all women, that we can get through this. We can overcome whatever problem is there. So again, the answer to your question, I think the future is going to be much brighter than we think. It only takes time, with the effort and the belief in the power and the capability of women of all ages to be part and parcel, really, in our society.
Well, I think this is a very nice way to end a discussion about women in the months of Women March. And definitely, thank you very much for coming. I'd like to really acknowledge and really appreciate your effort and your time to come to our program in Radio Cairo. Mrs. Amina Khairy, the famous journalist and writer and a columnist and a feminist. And I really believe every word that you have just said. And the most important words of it is that there is a ray of optimism always.
Exactly.
And to see how resilient and the fighting capabilities of Egyptian young ladies
and optimism
as well. They are not just lead or conductors of trains or drivers of trains. They are pilots. And I remember a story that once when I was a young student
You're
in the
still
school.
young, Dr. Amr.
Yes, thank you very much. When I was in school many years ago, and we were in a mixed school, one of my colleagues was saying that she's going to be a pilot, and the other was going to say that she's going to enter as a director of movies. And I made a joke about them, and she became one of the first pilots in our national company. And her sister became a director of movies. And this made me always give them the attitude of respect. And don't ever underestimate the will of
especially a woman.
Exactly. So by this we come to the end of our program today. It was the World of Info. We had the pleasure of having with us Mrs Amina Khairy, the famous journalist. My name is Dr. Amr Mabrouk. Dua Muhammad is at the control. Stay tuned always to Radio Cairo, and promise we'll come back same time, same station next week.